Altron is a holding company founded by Bill Fenter, whose 5 largest subsidiaries are Autopage Cellular, Bytes, PowerTech, Altech Netstar and UEC. It has a market cap of R2.5 billion and trades on a PE of 12 and a dividend yield of 4%. Obviously, this one deserving of some significant conversation. It's been around for a long time, and Altech obviously in the fold as well, Craig and Robbie Fenter.
Yeah. So Altron is the holding company at the top. It owns something like 60% of Altech, which is also listed. Altech's got all those other assets in it, like Bytes and so on.
Autopage Cellular.
Yeah, some, sort of meaningful, high cash flow, technology-based businesses, consulting as well as mobile and all that stuff I like. The stuff it owns directly are PowerTech, which used to be listed and is a major player in transformers, power distribution technology, cabling as well. It owns that 50% piece of ATC Aberdare we spoke about earlier, which is more the telecoms cable. So not so much the electrical distribution, more the stuff used in the telecommunications industry, which is narrow gauge copper and fiber optics. In fiber optics, they're spending billions, as you know. Telkom is spending billions, Neotel is spending billions, MTN and Vodacom pulling their own things. Then there's that company called Dark Fiber, which is a joint venture with Venf and Remgro. So that's all good. And that means, in my mind anyway, that Altech, Altron, the whole lot should be trading at a high value. They tend to get a little bit disregarded because of the strong family ownership.
Craig, just touching on the family ownership here, and potentially, I recently had this discussion with Robbie Fenter, that the market has often said, why don't we just have one entry point into the group? Does Altech need to be listed as well? I think it's something that they continue to relook, and if they get their way, I think Altech will be delisted.
Yeah, look, one sort of wonders if Craig was left to do his thing and Robbie left to do his, and see what happens. But it would make sense really for one, but there's also opportunities for unbundling. I think at one stage Bytes was a separate listing. It's now 100% subsidiary of Altron. So they have rather gone that way of consolidating, and there's always the argument, sometimes it's a timing issue in terms of market sentiment towards conglomerates and when may be the best time to unlock value and unbundle again. So I never really like too much shifting of restructuring, because it just confuses things, and the consultants are the only ones that make money at the end of the day on it. But it's an interesting group. On the power technology side, it's about 21% if you base it on headline earnings, profit to the group. And it's fluctuated quite a lot. Right now in this last set of results, the copper price has been good for it, so it's benefited it. The South African operations were good, about 17% increase in revenue, which is again an interesting story. But there's been times where they've had to write off big losses, and the group as a whole has struggled quite a bit, mainly because of the East and West African operations, and in fact to the extent where they're prepared to write off the West African operations completely.
Paul, writing off the West African operations completely, that sounds like a red flag to investors out there.
Part of the disappointment recently was that they talked up quite a good story about how they were going into that region, and then had to indicate that it was not really coming through. But look, the PowerTech business, and in fact the PowerTech cables business, which we wanted to talk about today, is about a 4 billion rand turnover, 400 million profit after tax business. So quite a substantial one. They have had their own challenges though. And remember, what I said earlier is these local manufacturing businesses only really do well when the rand is in their favor and when their global competitors are asleep, neither of which happen normally at the same time. So I am slightly concerned that if you want to be in this space, it makes more sense to be in the distributorship and retail end, like we were talking about earlier, not so much in the manufacturing end. So I wouldn't be hot on Altech on account of this business.
All right, we're going to hot and not, and Craig, to you in Cape Town, hot or not on Altron?
So Altron we're talking about, yeah, they've got a new chief executive on the PowerTech side. They've restructured a few things. I'm going to say hot going forward. I think the bad news is in the current figures, and going forward I think things can go better. We've seen two years basically of them having to swallow hard.
Hot or not, Mr. Tehran?
I'd like to say yes, because I love the sector, technology, but for me there are other choices, so not hot here.